So yeah, it was a journey to realize that you are not God's gift to this earth.
Frank Sinatra used to sing, "I did it my way,"
You cannot be doing it your
and
way.
the Lord just said, "No, it's my way, not your way." You know, so we sort of had to get that in that season.
So that was after 8 years. So if I look back over the 20 years, the Lord worked with us thus far in seasons of 8 years.
8
So
years
the first 8 years we were young, and we at the end of the 8 years we went through the apostasy, and then the second 8 years started with us being harvester. So the first 8 years we were called Potter's House.
I even forgot about that.
We even forgot about that. We had a different name. And after coming back from the summit, that summit where I realized what the sufferings of Christ meant, Apostle Andre and Nola sent us back. They said, "We're sending you back with a new name." So on the flight back, Carel says to me, "We have to change our name." And I'm like, "No. We've lost enough. I'm not going to give up our name as well." He says, "Oh, and you have to lead the dance." And I said, No. Anyway, so on our way back from the airport, we drive past the property because the property was en route to our house. Our house was just 2 blocks down. We had then moved from the flats. We had upgraded a little bit, had 2 babies in the meantime. So when we moved past, we had the property, and we had a fence around the property and the cross on the property.
The big cross.
And then the apostasy happened. So what I can also say, we had money and then we didn't. So we kind of stopped everything because there was nothing that we could do. We had already ordered the tent, but it was halfway paid. So there was a lot of stress also in that time for us in terms of that. But there was a name board on the property. So it said Potter's House. And on our way back, driving past the property, the name board snapped. I don't know how to put it differently. The legs of the board snapped and it broke into pieces, and it was actually lying face down on the ground, the board. And so I turned to Carel and said, "Okay, we can have a new name." Apparently.
First things have to snap before
I make a decision. So then we decided, okay, we'll be harvester, but I can't remember, did we say we kept the Potters, and then I can't remember, but anyway, and then Apostle Andre came to us and he said, "Look, there's another harvester church in Centurion. They also small and you are small. Why don't you join forces and become one bigger harvester? It just makes more sense." So we said, okay, well, we will look into it, because we were a bit apprehensive because of what happened just very, very recently when we called in a second pastor. So we were not there where we already, we weren't ready to trust someone, if I can put it that way. Then we went to visit their church once, and their church then came to visit us. They were about 80 people and we were about 80 people, I guess. Plus minus, we were about the same amount of people. And then we said, okay, we're calling out a fast, our church and their church, and then after that we'll come together to decide if we should, become one. And the Lord gave us Isaiah 60 that says, "Your land will be married." And I realized, okay, that is what the Lord is telling us to do. In consultation with them, they came back and they said the Lord is also telling them to do that. So I think they called themselves Harvester Centurion. Harvester Centurion and Potter's House became one, and we became Harvester Pretoria. So that was with Apostle Stephen John and Eunine, and that was another 8 years. It was exactly another 8 years until Apostle Stephen John decided to plant a church in Randburg, but that was 8 years. So for those 8 years, the main purpose of those 8 years was to occupy the land. If you go read Isaiah, you'll see it says, "Pass through the gates, make way for the people, remove the stones." It actually it's got quite a bit of instructions on what to do. When we moved into the tent, remember now, I did explain that we were very poor. We didn't have money, so we really had to trust the Lord for every single thing. We realized that when we joined, we were still in the shopping center.
And then I think the first service when we joined was on this property.
No. We joined there. And
Is
then
it already
remember we
there?
said we didn't have enough for 2 pastors' salary and to pay the 12,500 rand that we
For the
paid
rent, yeah.
for the rent.
So we have to
And
make
we
the
have a
move.
property here and we are paying rent on this property. It doesn't make sense. We have to make the move. The tent had already been paid halfway. That's also a miracle. Maybe I can just share one miracle.
Maybe we need
about
to
the
give
move.
Janelle the opportunity
I
just
mean-
to say something because you just gone. Do you want to ask a question? Sorry, Janelle.
Do you want to ask a question? I feel like it's rolling.
Hilana, what is the miracle you want?
How did you think about that? Anyway, so okay, the miracle. So the tent was halfway paid. I can't even remember what we paid for the tent.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, and we had to now pay the balance.
Just to give you an indication of where we were and what happened was, when we had to pay the deposit or the first half of the tent, we took it up in one service, and now we were in a place where we can have a whole year's services and we wouldn't be able to take up the same amount of offering.
Wow.
So it was a crazy thing that year.
So yeah, we knew we had to move, but we knew we didn't have the money for the balance of the tent. Look, the tent had a time frame in which they had to deliver. So they phoned us and they said they've got a bit of a problem because the roof, they didn't order enough material for the roof. And now there's one strip that they cannot match like 100% with the color of the tent. So that would mean that there's a strip on the roof that will look different. So we gave them some time. We were just very grateful to give them some time to try and find the strip. And then eventually they came back to us and they said, listen, we cannot find it. We cannot match it. To complete the tent, we're going to have to put in a strip. It's that strip. We're going to have to put in a strip that is a different color, unfortunately. But because of that, we'll give you a discount. So we were like, yeah.
We were very happy about
you
the
do
discount and the time they gave us. It was when you on the outside of the tent, you can see the color difference much better than inside.
See the color difference.
But incredible.
But
That's a
that color
testimony.
difference it saved us about 30,000
I think $30,000.
So that was amazing.
30,000
and then they also had a bit of compassion on us. So they allowed us to put up the tent before it was completely paid. And we then made an arrangement with them to pay it off as time went on. On the day that we had to put up the tent, usually you rent a team to come and put up a tent this size, but we couldn't afford a team. So
we had one guy.
We had the people who made the tent said to us, they've got this old man, but he's really old. And he can do it. And I can't remember, I think he asked us like 7,000 rand.
Something like that. Yeah.
And he'll come and do it. It's a day's job. He just needs people who are willing to help. So I remember Andre being here. I don't know why I just remember Andre. I'm sure there were more than
there was
Andre.
many people, yeah.
Yeah.
But he was
I
the
just
one that...
I just got to know Andre. It wasn't like I knew Andre very well, the jager now. And it was a very violent storm that broke out. It was
in the
insane.
midst of pitching this tent.
Donderslag, and it was lightning, and it was very scary, very, very scary. I was actually afraid that they will die because this is kind of metal. So I thought,
the lightning would strike it. It did strike the middle pole.
It did, yeah. So this old Oomie and Andre and whoever was here, Carel and Jaco, dink ek was ook
here. There's a lot of people, yeah.
Pitched the tent, and then a month later, that old man passed away.
It was his last tent that he pitched up.
We were the last
so that
tent
was
he
actually
pitched
also
up. So that was a
beautiful.
miracle in itself. But I mean, just to finish this floor was a miracle.
Yeah, there's so many things.
There's so many miracles.
Everything went sort of like quickly when it came to the foundations. There's such a big.
But that's the thing again. What do you have? Okay, I have this, Lord. Right, start moving. And in the moving, the Lord added what needed to be added so that we had enough to finish what we needed to finish.
Just maybe this one testimony as well. When we had to do the foundation, so we have a proper foundation here. So it's as deep as I'm long. So it's not a tall. Sorry about that. But anyhow, so it was very deep, and we made it like that for the fact that we wanted to build upon it later on as well. We don't know if we're going to build high or what we're going to do. So we had to put it cement in, and We went to see a guy with a cement trucks in a factory, and we asked him if there would ever be an opportunity where his trucks, get into difficulty, a site or whatever, and they have to dump some of these cement. Just think of us. And the guy listened, and that was that. And about a month later, on a Saturday, we got a call that says, listen, they're ready to bring some cement. So we rushed here with some guys, and you wouldn't believe me, I think it was 23 truckloads, 23 trucks that was to go, and those years it was about 15 to 17,000, I think, per truck if you would have paid for it. So it was a lot of money's worth of cement, and the site that they were going to weren't prepared for them, so they had to dump it because the cement will get hard within the truck, so they have to get rid of it. So they came and they poured our foundation, and when they were done, this church and the containers and the toilet containers, it was perfect, as if it was measured out just for this building project. When that last truck left, it was all done and settled. A miracle that cost us nothing, So there's many such things. But this floor never had such a miracle. We had to do it by hand, this whole thing. So that's why you'll see...
There was no electricity.
No electricity. We had a light here with the generator at night. We would come with the men. And every block was hand done, with cement. Apostle Clint actually was the one that gave us the cement to do this, but it took so long just to get this floor done. But there's so many such testimonies. That second 8 years was settling into the apostolic and physically settling on this property as well.
So often the Lord would say to me, as I'm building this locality, I'm building you and building the church. And I think that will remain true for this church until Jesus comes. Because there was something about, the inside of the tent was very bare initially. And then one day Maimi came and she said, it's time to adorn the inside. And as we were doing the inside, the Lord was speaking to us about how He was busy with us on the inside. If you look from many people will say that, I know you've experienced it, when they come to the tent, when they come in, they're like, wow, that's nice, because on the outside it looks like a tent, but on the inside it really looks like a church. And the Lord was speaking to us a lot about Christ being seen in the lives of the people, and eventually we started moving to the outward.
So it's that inner reality of faith, to train the people not to be impressed with outward appearance, but to be impressed with the inner man, and training the people, like Hilana says, so that the character of Christ might be formed in the people. So those sort of principles were the things that God laid down for us. The doctrine, the theology of the apostolic was laid in our lives through the next phase, that 8-year period. And very prophetic and practical ways in which the Lord trained us. Lots and lots of miracles in this season, both financially, in the lives of the people, being trained in the dance, being trained in prophetic worship. It was a season of training, a lot of training, and a lot of focus on the local church and the growth of the local church.
If I look at it, like it's a bit of a hidden season.
Yeah, we were hidden in a sense. Yeah,
where the Lord said, He's hiding us. He's busy with us. He's working
with us. It's a deep internal work. Yeah,
very, very intimate work that the Lord was busy with. Because remember now, our whole way of thinking had to be reformed. The way we thought church should be, the way we were trained that church should be. It had to be reformed completely. If we thought it was this way, we would have to ask the Lord, okay, but what's the other way? Because apparently there should be another way. And then try and implement the way that we see in the Bible. I think that's key. The Lord really drew us back to the template of the Bible. And
the fivefold. I think it's also a season where the Lord really released the ministry, the fivefold gifts in us. Training the church, the body started to take form. So the whole idea of body, not the way we used to think about it, but the idea of the whole body or no body, that sort of thing came. and activating the body, raising up new ministries, anointing people in the locality, preparing them, training them again. And then from when was that? When did that 8 years end?
When Apostle Stephen John left, so it's 4 years ago now.
Was it all 4 years?
So it was around 2018.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly, but there was a shift that came when we sent Apostle Stephen John to go plant the church in Randburg. Just before he went, the whole idea started to surface, where God really opened up the region to us. So before then, we sort of thought a whole lot about the locality, the church in Pier van Ryneveld. And then the Lord sort of started to show us, but we are put in this region in Gauteng. We're not just here for the city of Centurion, but for the cities of Pretoria, Johannesburg and Kempton Park, the whole region. And at first, me and Stephen John, we thought, all right, the Lord was saying plant households all over the Gauteng area, because we had people coming from everywhere, from great distances driving to the church. And then actually we realized that the Lord was challenging us to plant again. So that will be our third plant. The first one, the apostasy, the second one, and the Lord sort of saying, okay, now it's time to sort of start to plant churches in the region. In that second phase, I think also the Lord started to train me, also Stephen John, in the global sort of picture. We were involved a lot in India in that time. Went to India, planted lots of churches, initiated church plantings in India in that 8 years. So the Lord started to open that picture for us of really going and planting churches. And Prophet Clint, Apostle Clint now, and Lisa, he was initially a prophet for us in this house. We ordained him. They came from Heidelberg. They drove more than 100 kilometers every Sunday. And they would sometimes hear more on time than people living in Pier van Ryneveld for services. We always joked about that. But for how much? 7 years, 7 years they did that. And then their plant became the first plant that we planted out of this local church. And I committed to, I think it was a 3-year process. Just to help me, I'm struggling to remember all the times and so on. So for 3 years, every Wednesday, I would drive to Heidelberg. They would come on Sundays, and I would go to Heidelberg. And then we did the Bible school. We did foundations, submissions, apostolic perspective, all of the subjects we've been doing in this local church for many years now. But we did it there. I think we did 4 subjects. And in that Bible school, I met Apostle Andile and Tandaza. And so the first plant actually was in Balfour. From that Bible school, with the support of Apostle Clint and Lisa and the church in Heidelberg, they started to plant in Balfour. Heidelberg was planted, then Grootvlei came. So suddenly church plants started to happen. The whole vision for this whole region started to develop. Churches came in Vereniging that was planted by Pastor Edmund and his wife, and now taken over by Pastor Henk. And in that process also Randburg came up. And Stephen John, that's been with us for that 8 years, just was at a time that he was ready to go and plant, and we sent them. So there was a great move from the locality to the region. More recently, we got the church in Cullinan. So there's quite a region that was forming. Later on, Pastor Petrus came with how many churches?
Petrus is in Ratanda, and now the last one that was added was Centurion.
And then the last one now added was actually close to where Stephen John's church used to be. Pastor Carel Hilana, also an apostle, and his church joined then. So we quite a region that developed in this last sort of 8-year cycle. I don't know if it's going to be 8 years again, but in the cycle that we're in right now, that sort of thing just took hold. And so we're seeing our church's purpose and destiny really more clearly as we have gone on. Very privileged nowadays to be involved in Mauritius. Also with Apostle Clint opened that door for us there. first church that was planted there on the last visit that we were there. And now recently we were involved in Namibia again. So again, that whole initial word that was given to us that we would be involved all around the world is starting to become a reality. We don't know what the next 20 years would hold, but I would believe that it would sort of grow on what's been happening right now in our church as well. So yeah, let's give her an opportunity. She's got a list there. She does have a list. Sorry.
I love how this whole story started with me asking, so tell me your fears and how you overcame it. And then you just ended up telling your whole testimony.
We're very good at taking the lead.
But no, but I love that in the sense of throughout your stories and your testimony, there's one thing that I realized is that God prepares you for something beforehand, but He also provides each and every single day. So just by sharing your testimony of how you have journeyed up until today, you've answered the question of how do you overcome your fears? And that's just, you just do.
Yeah.
You go. You start to work with what you have in front of you. And you trust God that if He gave the word, that He will provide. And I can genuinely see that in your journey up until now. With every story that you told, it was a story of trusting and having faith and seeing the provision at the end of the day. And, you know, seasons changing and questions arising, but seeing the answer at the end of the question. All because you had that consistency. I think that is the awesome thing that I feel like stands out of your story is consistency. I think you told the story once, Carel, of someone saying that you're the longest pastoring pair in, I don't know if that's how you say it, in Pierre van Ryneveld. 20 years now, because others have come and went. Might not be, I don't know, the longest church, but definitely the longest pastoring pair. And I think that takes a certain type of patience and strength and endurance. So I definitely take off my hat towards you guys, and I believe God will definitely honor you in that. But may that be an encouragement for anyone that listens, that consistency pays off.
Yeah.
Consistency definitely pays off, and trusting in God that He will provide the outcome in whichever way. I mean, cement that just arrives. That's not something that you thought the outcome would be, but it was. Driving to Cape Town, not even knowing how far Cape Town is, and then ending up in a whole different, I don't know, do you call it denomination? Or not denomination, but whole different name for your church.
Yeah, they speak about the apostolic as a move of God.
Yeah,
so,
a whole different move.
Yeah.
So it's trusting God every day in the daily things. So may that be an encouragement for you that, today I was reminded of the verse in James, James 1 verse 3, and I have it in front of me here that says, it says, count it all joy, my brothers. You know, that part where it says, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness.
Yep.
And let the steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. And I had this verse before going into this. I didn't know why I had this before. But if I listen to your story, that's exactly that verse that I'd say sums it up, is you counted everything as joy. Most of it as joy.
Now we do.
Now we do.
And you learned through it all, and now you can say, you've gained a lot of wisdom through it. So